Tell me what the hell are you scared of when in the end the only thing
Where's the love? Right here on this podcast. Welcome to Love Drops, where your hosts and One Love ambassadors, Charles and Diane, will share love, hope, and inspirational topics taken from their journey and world events. We will also include on-location recordings and special pop-up guests from cool places all around the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
whether big or small, love never fails. Oh, love it conquers all. Love never fails.
Welcome to another episode of Love Drop Podcast. We are so excited to be here in Paris, France, recording our last episode for 2024 on this new moon. And we have the most appropriate guest for you. She is a showstopper, show finisher, show star, and she is the right one, baby, for the last episode. So with that, Charles.
Yes, she is a show within herself. And I won't go into details, but she will. Her name is Cindy. And with that said, Cindy, you have the mic.
Another opening, another show. You did say I was a showgirl after all, right? Hello,
That's
everybody.
right.
Cindy Khoury Ashton. And I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. And I currently, at the time of this recording, I live at Paris. Oh, Paris. It's so romantic in Paris, France. So I love living here. Love the lifestyle. It's a little damn cold in the winter, but it's so awesome. So ever since I was a fetus, I was swimming in my mother's belly. So when people say to me, what made you go on to be a singer and an actor and a dancer? And I'm like, honey, it was not a choice. It was like, my earliest memories have been really just grabbing sequins and dimming the lights in the living room and putting on the record player and singing, I am woman, hear me roar, to my imaginary audience of millions. So my whole life has been dedicated to singing, dancing, acting. I'm also an award-winning television host. But on the other side of it, I've always considered myself the activist. I'm sure that will come up in our conversation today. I have a love activist. I have always been that one standing up for causes and speaking truths, but I've also been the teacher, quote unquote. And so I have a brand called Brave Voices Rising, which really supports beautiful artists and creatives to be able to get sustainable income, because most artists we are the storytellers of the world, and yet most of them are struggling financially. So so I've got lots of hats I wear. I love life. I'm so grateful to be alive. I've spent my whole life battling illness until recently. So again, I understand the preciousness of life.
Wow. I tell you, you are a shining star. Yes, indeed, you are. And we have been around Paris with Cindy, and Cindy is definitely a singer, entertainer, a bright light. She will stop and drop a song on a dime, anywhere. And I love it. I love the energy. I love the shine. I love the flow. And I love our alignment. And so, with that said, that takes us into our topic today. We are speaking on flowing in alignment. Charles and I are definitely no strangers to the flow of alignment, and neither is Cindy, as you will see or hear in this episode. Charles?
Yes, with that said, I don't want to spoil any of it, but Cindy is spontaneity.
Yes.
She is very spontaneous and on key every time.
Every time.
Yes, we love her from day one. Fantastic. But I won't spoil any of it. I will just hand this mic over to Cindy. So please know that our topic will be launched.
With Cindy.
Ah. So when it comes to flowing with alignment, there are two types of people in this world. I feel like there's that, and I'm totally willing to be wrong about this. But you've got those who have bought into the I make a goal and I push and I hustle and I make it happen. And I was definitely that person, and it never felt right for me. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, I live in this box, this is what I'm doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's people who are the creatives of the world that we try to be in a box. We're like, box, there's a box. I'm in prison. I don't want a box. What box? I don't have a box in my life. I don't want a box. And so over the years, I've been in this weird trying to find the balance because I'm such that spontaneous free spirit. But when I was born with heart failure and a 20% chance of living. And the whole left side of my body was structurally damaged. So the left leg was turned the wrong way, and doctors didn't know if my legs would grow out well enough to be able to walk, let alone dance. I had a damaged lung because when I had the heart failure, all the blood poured into the lungs, so I had a damaged lung. The left eye was up into the left. My eyes weren't aligned, so seeing was an issue. There was just a lot of problems with the left side, and I had my first heart surgery at 11 days old. And to shorten the story, because we could talk for an entire hour on my health prognosis and my journey of how I reversed illness without medication, which I never tell people to follow my lead on that because I'm not a medical professional. But, at 11 days old, they saved my life, and they told my parents, well, she's going to need multiple other surgeries. Good luck with her. And because of the result of all the surgeries growing up in and out of hospitals, what people back then didn't talk about, and I don't think they still talk about it enough, is the amount of trauma to the body, to the soul, to your spiritual self, to your mental self. Like, we don't talk about trauma enough. We don't understand it enough. And so because of all the trauma to the body and cutting through bones and tissues and nerves, and I ended up living with lifelong chronic pain. And very gratefully, it was undiagnosed. So I already knew I had Raynaud's disease. I already knew that I had a heart condition, corruption of the aorta. But I was living in all this pain and didn't realize, and it was undiagnosed until a few years ago, and I'm turning 50 now, that I had fibromyalgia and I had rheumatoid arthritis, and none of that was diagnosed. So my whole life has been until recently, until I reversed it all, of managing pain and illness every single day. So here I am going back to the flow that you're talking about, the flow of alignment. When you have to manage your day so strictly, because I chose not to be on disability, and I don't have any judgment for people on disability. I think there's a lot of people who really can't have that choice. In my case, I chose to continue to go after my dreams because I've noticed since I was a fetus. I think that most people don't know their purpose, and it's their life pain. My life pain has been I've known my purpose, but I have had a lot of stops and starts and a lot of constrictions on that purpose because I've been living with illness, which has made me so determined to reverse it. So it's been interesting because I'm a free spirit that has literally had to have very, very strict routines in place for decades, and I would wake up until a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, I would wake up every day, do a body scan. Where am I in pain? How much pain am I in? What can I manage today? What do I need to take off my plate? What can I add to my plate? That rarely ever happened. So it's so interesting that I'm the person who's so free that I had to be so controlled. How many breaks do I need to take in the day to get through the day? So it's interesting though, because as I went through my decades, and reversing the illness, it was always, what is finding freedom? What is finding liberation to me? And it still makes me want to cry that I still live with illness, but it's so minimal that I can deal with it now. But over the years, what I really learned, going back to the flowing and alignment, is that it's finding the freedom within the constraints. And how you do that is listening deeper to the body. And if you have lived with chronic pain and illness your whole life, you're either resisting it or you surrender to it. And I wish I knew earlier in my life that you had to surrender to it. And the more that I learned to surrender to it, the more that I was able to access deep, deep intuition and listen and just go with what shows up. So that's been my incredible journey with what does that look like to flow with alignment.
Wow, that is amazing. And some of the things that you said that I really want to circle back on.
There's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. Look at you, got me singing, Cindy. We're not doing that. You're not going to have me singing on Love Drop now. You got me singing responses. That's what I do when I'm with you. That's how we flow, right?
I know we
You know,
sing.
because we're happy. Okay, stop.
I'm
No,
so happy.
no, not doing it. Not doing it, Cindy. No, no. No, Cindy. No, but serious. No, but anyways, back to just flowing in that free spirit in that box. That was me. And one of the things that I've learned to do in flowing in alignment is to surrender. So you said that too, but in order to get to that place, I had to have that fight with myself because I was a control freak, a medical background on the side of just being the provider, not the patient. So there's always what's the rationale? What's the plan of care? And we're checking boxes. So imagine me in a box checking professional that does not like, love, or want boxes. I've never
Yeah.
been inside of a box. I've always been outside of the box. I've always pushed the edges, always. If you told me I couldn't do something, well, why not? If you said don't go over there, well, what's over there? If you said don't touch that, I'm going to touch it. So, right. So it's like getting those two things in alignment. First, you have to get yourself in alignment in order for you to flow in alignment. And that's a unique journey for everybody. And it takes as long as it takes. But what I can say is once you get that part done, the flow will go because you will surrender. You will let go because you will know in that alignment that you have to let go to flow. You have to let go to flow.
And as soon as you can find out that flow, which is evident with Cindy, that she found out the flow as a fetus. She knew, but she didn't know that she knew what she knew,
That's true.
but she knew it, and she is flowing in that alignment. Can you just imagine knowing your flow as a fetus?
Exactly.
Wow.
That in itself is just that's magical. That is very, very special. And you need it. You needed to know it that early because just fast forwarding to this year, which is where I want to bring us in the last year, which is a 12-month period, in case you were wondering. Cindy has lived in 23 different places, found home in 23 places, 7 countries, and just wow. And so much flow in between all of that, which blows me away. And Charles and I, we flow. I mean, people say, won't you
Yeah.
settle down or won't you find a home or won't you slow down? But Cindy has us beat 23 places, 7 countries in a year. I think I'm going to put that on my bucket list. But tell us about that, Cindy.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, I immigrated to France October 31st, 2023. So that was just over a year ago. And I didn't think it would be that difficult to find a place. Although, interestingly, my body had a little bit of panic. My body's like, you need to get there sooner than later to find a home. And I was like, what is going on with that? Why am I getting that intuition? And so I got here and I didn't realize that it would be this difficult. So I literally go to the application because you have to have a guarantor, right? And they're like, but you only make $3,000 a month. I said, no, I don't. I said, I have a 6-figure business. I said, oh, but we only count what you pay yourself. I said, I'm frugal. So I was only so I couldn't get a place right away unless I wanted to live in a little hole outside of Paris. And I didn't move to Paris and live in a little hole because they only approved me for 900 euros a month in rent. And I'm like, can you not see my rent checks from last year in New York City? So finally, by the time I get to the beginning of February, because I gamed the system, I went to apply, then they approved me for several thousand in rent. And I was like, yay, finally. But at that point, because I'm a celebrity, I'm in the celebrity category in Hollywood, I was heading off to Hollywood for the Oscars to do the red carpets and the gifting suites and get to play that. So much fun. When I used to be a celebrity interviewer, it was always interesting to see how I am going to get to the 23 places in a moment, but it was always interesting to see how many of the celebrities I would interview who were like so uncomfortable. And I'm like, no, put me on the red carpet. I'm I'm happy to be a celebrity. So I figured, no problem. I've got my guarantee now. When I get back, I'll find a place and it'll be just in time before the Olympics. So at this point, I had only really stayed in this one sublet for 4 months. So that was good. I was in the same sublet. It was really very much below my living standards. But when you live in Paris and you're an immigrant, you're like, I'm in Paris, who cares? So I end up going to Toronto first to see family, or I go to New York first to see family. I get to LA for the Oscars. I go to New York on the way back, or Toronto on the way back to see family. And on my last night in Toronto, I have a realtor all ready to go. And I have a sublet set up for the next month, because once I get there, I need a sublet for the month. So the night before I'm supposed to fly out, I get a text from the woman saying, I'm sorry, but the sublet is no longer available. There's somebody who wants to pay more. With the Paris Olympics coming up, the bidding war is already starting. So I'm like, I'm flying out tomorrow. So I'm texting my friend Stacy in London. And she's like, why don't you just reroute and come to London? So then I ended up in London with my friend Stacy. Then I'm still having problems trying to find like a place to live. So then I end up going to Porto. So I just have all these friends who keep inviting me to live with them. So then I finally get back. I'm super excited. I'm in some kind of a Best Western in Paris at this point. And then my realtor and I, she had done a remote, whatever you call it, like remote. She went and did all the videos of all the apartments. I chose one. I got approved, which is very difficult in Paris to get approved, especially when you have self-employment income and you're an artist and you don't have French income at the time. But I got approved because of my GrantMe. So I'm in the hotel. I'm super excited because tomorrow I'm moving into my place, and I get a phone call from my realtor, and she's like, so I know that you signed a legal contract and that you paid $8,000 up front, but the guy found somebody who's willing to pay more. Do you want to sue him? I said, no, but I'd like my $8,000 back. I'm not going to go to court in French, and I'm still learning the language. So at this point, I'm like, what the freak am I going to do? Because I'm supposed to check out the next morning by 11 a.m. and I have nowhere to go. So then I go on Facebook and I'm like, so I have nowhere to go. And I don't, at this point, it just seems like it's going to be impossible to find a place before the Olympics. Everything is already like, only people are renting to the end of June. And then after that, they're right. So this started a whole shebang of like, so one friend is like, hey, I'm going to be gone on Vienna for 2 weeks. You could take my apartment for 2 weeks in May. I'm like, yay. So because I was so not prepared for this. So then I started the whole hopping. So I was in Vienna for 2 weeks. And at this point, I was so unbelievably exhausted that I decided to get a Verbo for another 2 weeks to stay there. And then I started, so it just became like, okay, well, where am I going next? Because I can't go back to Paris, until after the Olympics. So it was literally like, I think after that, I went to Barcelona. Then I went to Valencia because I had friends there, only they got COVID. So I didn't really see them until they got rid of the COVID. And I ended up running with the Bulls in Valencia. Then so it ended up just being like, talking about flow, I had no idea where I would be going to the next city. Until 2 or 3 days before, I'd be like, oh, I'm almost done in this sublet or this Verbo or whatever. Where am I going next? And I would something would show up or guide me. And I literally, by the time I got back to Paris in August, I was so exhausted, but then I was going to be gone for a month because I was going back to LA for the Emmys and for my show Liberated. So by that point, so I've literally lived in 23 different places in like a year.
I am so exhausted. Hold on. I'm going to take a nap.
It's exhausting.
I'll be right back. I'm going to take a 5-minute nap and then I'll be back. I just need to process all of that you just said.
Wow.
That just hearing it was truly exhausting, but it was a flow. So just hearing that, if I had to caption that, I would caption that as a rapid flow. You went through a very rapid flow over the course of 1 year. We have been through, rapid flows, slow, calm, easy flows, just smooth flows, right? And, you can always find your story in someone else's story, even if it's not the same, it's like the similarity. And so when you said you got that call right before, you said you got the call, say like the day before you were supposed to move, you got that day before call a couple of times. that was pretty much literally our story before Charles and I went on this journey that we've been on for the last decade. And that was when we left our place in Pasadena, we had some place in Santa Barbara, California. We were going to go stay there for a couple of weeks and then head over to Paris, France, or so we thought. But that's not how flow took us. And the night, it wasn't even the night before. I say it was the day we turned in our keys, or day we signed out the lease or whatever. But it was a few days before we were supposed to put the flow in action that option for Santa Barbara got snatched off the table, and we don't know what happened to it. So it wasn't even like we got outbidded. We don't know what. It was just it got snatched off. And that's happened, with us a couple of times where we are flowing in one direction and we get redirected. And so my son, he always would say, well, mom, your setback is for your comeback, or your setup is for your come up. And so, I kind of look at it like that. Sometimes the flow will backstream to take off in a different direction that's better, for your flow.
One of the big things that resonated with me as you were sharing, how did you maintain your calmness? How did you keep it together during all of this?
Yeah, these are really good questions. So there's two comments with this, and I hear, yeah, you two are super brilliant with your flow, and yeah, you're right. It's a rapid flow. It's a rapid flow, and so that's definitely a really, really good question, because the first thing is that what I noticed is that when you talked about that rapid flow, I noticed that every single place that I lived, those 23 places, each of them had a different lesson for me. It was like rapid growth. It was really rapid growth. So it's been interesting to see how each place allowed me to either heal something or activate something and grow in some way. But that was a lot of growth all in one. And it was exhausting. But going back to your question, so I already have, like, in the mornings, I do my meditation, I do a movement meditation, I chant, I do yoga, and I journal, so I've got all kinds of routines. So because I've had the blessing of being sick most of my life, I have the blessing of knowing my body in a way that most people don't. And I've done such enormous work on trauma and so much work somatically to release the illness that I'm so in touch. I mean, listen, I was exhausted. By the time I got to July, I was getting really exhausted. So on the one hand, I knew that it was such a blessing that I had the opportunity to see all these amazing places. But I'm also a new immigrant. I also have a visa that's only 2 years and not a lot of time to build a French business here to a certain level. And on top of that, I was dealing with shutting down my 6-figure business in America. Like, I was dealing with so many different things at one time. I actually don't know how I survived this, but I will tell you, by July, I was getting really exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really having really, really hardcore self-care routines and being so in tune with your body that you listen to your body. They will tell you what you need.
Absolutely. And the wonderful thing about the flow is when you are unable, or you just feel so exhausted and tired, when you are in the flow of alignment, it will carry you through. The flow will bring those little gentle waves in the form of people to just help push you, to help nourish you, to help replenish you, to give you that space to rest, especially when you are recovering from some sort of trauma, or when things really went out of alignment for you. There will always be rest stops and rest points in the flow of alignment. We have so many awesome people in our lives. I mean, all over the world. We have a beautiful friend of ours that we consider her family. She's family in our heart, and she has a beach house that she allows us to replenish and refresh in. And the Charleston, South Carolina area. And it's just amazing. We took the journey from that space, and right now we're flowing back towards that space. And it's just a place where we are able to realign, to tap in, because we're right there by the ocean. And so it's pretty amazing. So, it's awesome to flow in alignment, and it's awesome to surrender to that flow, because it will carry you through. And even though you are exhausted, not too exhausted to be liberated. And so that's where I want to flow to, because
Yay.
you find yourself at this place where you're like, okay, there's a table, there's a stage in your case that I want to take. I want to take, set stage. Well, set stage is not allowing Cindy up. It's not letting you step on the stage. So Cindy said, you know what? I will build my own stage, and then I'll take that stage liberated. So tell us about that flow.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when I came to Europe, the main reason why I moved to Paris is because, and to Europe is because the health and the lifestyle here is much better. But I also really wanted to expand my career here as an artist. And I was really excited because in the past I've done really big stages like headlining Times Square and, singing with symphonies. And I was like, oh, this should be a shoe-in because of my reputation, where I'm at in my career. I should be able to get these types of gigs. Only once I arrived here, it really did not seem like things went sideways in many ways, not just the housing situation and not being able to concentrate as much because I was constantly dealing with constant crazy. But there was also this piece where, my friend, who's an amazing tenor, has for 20 years been doing all the big opera houses across Europe. He said, I've never been hired in France ever. So I'm like, that's interesting, but that was your karma, not mine. And I didn't take that on. But throughout this past year, I started to really see the kinds of opportunities I would have here would take me back 20 years of my career. It would be diminishing my career greatly. And that there is big opportunities here. But what I've learned from my friend and who's the opera singer, as well as many other people, including hiring a couple of, acting, singing career coaches, like specific for career in France, are all like, you actually need an international agent.
Ah.
And I'm like, oh, so I need a London agent or an LA agent or a New York agent to help me get into France. This is ridiculous. France is very tight. They don't let people in very easily. So I'm still gonna have my dream here. It's just I need to be leveraging my connections back in LA and New York. So going back to Liberated, I had hired an amazing PR gal, Harry Eddins, up in the UK. So while I've gotten a ton of media attention and am the media back in the US, I didn't know how it worked here in Europe. I mean, I know how to pitch, but I didn't know the details. And I hired her, and she said, first of all, because you're finally healthy, even though you have a really good resume, she says, you've never been able to consistently perform. And I'm like, nope, because of my health. And now I can. And she said, your positioning is, from lifelong sickness to triumphant performer at 50. And I said, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so as we started to talk through the strategy, she said, create your own work, Cindy. Create something that represents who you are today. And I got shivers because my whole life, I'm always seen as a showgirl. I'm always seen as, I got I'm always like, I'm always a funny girl. I always get the funny characters. I always get the bitchy characters. Like I am so typecasted. And it has been one of my biggest frustrations because there are roles like Evita, who apparently I'm too old to play, but I'm damn well going to play it. So stand back, people, that I have auditioned for and have always been passed up for. And I am perfect for that role because I've got the emotional depth, the dramatic depth. It resonates on so many different levels, who she is, who she was. So throughout my life, I'm like, I am tired of being seen as the fun Broadway chick. I'm done. And so when I created Liberated, I went really far outside of what people expected from me. People expected me to do very much a whole bunch of show tunes and make them laugh the whole time. the show Liberated, and we are developing it to the next level now, which is super exciting. But Liberated is like, with all the crazy going on in the world, with all the world events, how do we find freedom within ourselves? Because we cannot control the madness going on right now. We can definitely be a healer as part of it. We could definitely use our voice to be part of the healing, but we can't control it.
Right.
So how do we find that freedom? And
Right.
so when I literally opened the show with Sound of Silence, this is like, I only had 2 show tunes in the whole show. It was a lot of repertoire that was not my usual of what I get paid for. So, and when I say Sound of Silence, it was not Hello Darkness, my old friend. It was definitely like, I dramatized it, because if you actually look at the lyrics, to the neon god they made, people are bowing and praying to the neon god they made. That if you are acting that moment, you are angry that we are buying into the leaders, and I will not name who. Believe me, when I sing that lyric, every time I sing it, I have a very specific politician in my mind that makes me so angry that people are bowing to this person who's a narcissistic maniac. And I'm like, how are you not seeing this? But, and there's that other part of it, like 10,000 people, maybe more, people dying, and like people are speaking and they're not hearing. People are listening, but they're like, people are like I took this to a level that the whole room was like, this was, and being Palestinian, and I hate being Palestinian most of my life because of all the bullying, and I changed my name to Khoury Ashton, when I was 16, and then I changed schools to stop the racism. So, I came out in this last year and liberated myself and talked about being Palestinian and the racism, and talked about what's going on with the genocide. And I did it with love as much as possible. And this is being last year, like, Liberated is, I completely liberated myself. But in the show Liberated, I actually did a tribute to Palestine and to my family living there. And I even sang in Arabic. I tackled religion, I tackled the Middle East, I tackled racism, I tackled all of it in one show. So it was a very dramatic, very, very heavy show, with making sure to do a lot of comic relief in between, with only, like, I redefined who I was as an artist. And I wouldn't even say I really showed who I truly am as an artist, which is all those things, not just happy showgirl, cabaret girl.
And I love that. I love it. I got the snippet. You send me the video YouTube, and we're actually going to put the link in the narrative so that when listeners hear the show, they'll be able to go and support and see who you are, because I think that's important. I've told you from day one, you're a beautiful vibe, and I just really love your energy. Charles and I both. I love the fact that you have the courage in your flowing alignment to show the world who you are, not to wait for the spotlight to come on you, but to be the spotlight. Hey, it's Cindy over here, right? And okay, yeah, I am funny, but I am also serious. I am also dramatic. I am also a boss that I can write my own show. So I have a lot of talent. There are many layers and many different angles of me. I'm not just single layer angle Cindy. I am multi-dimensional, right? And here are my dimensions, because you only want to put the light on this dimension. Let me show you what I'm working with here.
I love that you've reflected that. Going back to the show, when I was building the show, because the show is now on demand, and sometimes I'll do them virtually where we get to watch together and do Q&A. But here's what I want to talk about the flow in this, because I think there's an important lesson. I didn't set a price. I said, set your own price. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I said the suggested is 30 euro, but what I did in there, and I said, but I don't want this to be a barrier. If you're called to see this and you only have €1, I'm okay with that. It doesn't matter. And here's what I'm going to tell you that's really interesting, is that if I look at the average person, they gave me more than 50% of the people gave me more than 30 euros.
Wow.
And right. And I had zero expectation. If every single person who had bought, and and I still have people buying on demand, which is great. But again, I don't care what you give me. Give me what's right for you because I'm taken care of, and that is flow. It's letting go of control. People are like, that's not good marketing. You need to position it. And I'm like, I'm brilliant at marketing, but it's not about that. When you go to the flow of the energy, the right people are going to come in, and the people who can, and the people who can't, they're not going to feel any shame about that because they still get to be there.
Yes.
We change a game with accessibility when we choose to do things like that. And I was very specific about that.
I love that. I love that. That so resonates with me, Charles, and who we are in this whole one love thing. Because let me tell you something. When my flow, it seems to be not diminished because we have never been to no flow. The drops have always come. Sometimes they're big splash, sometimes they're little drops, but we have always been taken care of over this 10-year journey for having the courage to just walk away from our life, what we were doing to come out here and spread love in the world. We have always been taken care of. But what I will say is when I feel that energy of lack, because I don't care who you are, lack will creep in some way or the other. It doesn't have to be financially, it could be emotionally, it could be spiritually, it could be physically, but lack will find its way because that's what lack does. Lack tries to flow in and bring you down and dry you out, right? But when I feel that lack energy in me, I'll give where I feel. If I feel it in my financial wheelhouse, then I'll give. I will give. It's like you don't even have that, but I will because I know flow. So I know that if I give it, if I put it out, it must flow back. It has to flow. That is it, right? I will attract what I give out. If I give out fear, I will attract fear. If I give out lack, I will attract lack. So whatever it is that I most need, that's what I give because I will attract it back. And I don't give it to attract it back because that's law, baby. I give it because that's what I believe. That's my heart posture. If I don't feel it, I'm not giving it. I can have more than enough, but if I don't feel it, I'm not going to give it. I have to give it in the right energy because that's how flow works. So I give it in love. So I love how you allow for people to just put their own price tag on because that one person that give you €1, you have somebody else will come and give you €1,000. You have somebody give you €500. So it's just like when you let it be what it needs to be, you're always going to be taken care of. And that's the thing. But when you look at the money, then you lose so much of the lesson of the love. If you just money focused, if you just focused on a dollar sign, and I'm gonna throw this here, and I see my husband just kind of flowing to jump in, but I'm gonna throw this in right.
Yeah, he's like, I can see him. He's like ready to jump.
Yeah, he's ready to go. But I'm gonna throw this right here, and that is something my very wise mother always says. She says, as far as money, if you can count it, it is not enough. So I don't try to count anything because that goes more than abundance of prosperity. What that did is it took me from a lack mentality. It took me from a limit. It took me into a limitless sphere. So I say, if you can count it, it's not enough. I don't look at the dollar signs. I don't because I know that what I need will always be there for me and more because I am a vessel to flow through, Charles.
Yes, and there's no dollar amount or no monetary amount, I'll say, that you can put on the giving of love, especially if it's coming from the heart. And it just continues to multiply. And we give and we give and we give. We create ways to give. And then when folks ask, where do you get it from? It comes from our heart. We give. We'll find ways of giving. How can we help? How can we give more? And we continue to do that. And when you're saying about a person may give €1 for your performance, some might give 1,000. If it comes from the heart, there's no ending to it. We have given performances with nothing but giving and finding better ways to give even more. How can we help? We are true One Love ambassadors. And
Yes,
that's
you
what
are.
we've been doing, giving, giving, and finding other ways to continue to give
In love.
in love. They say
Yeah.
you can't pour from an empty cup. Our cup is constantly filled with love,
Amen.
and we give.
Yes, we do.
It's so beautiful.
Ha. I tell you, I love the flow. I love the liberation of the flow. I even love the rapidness of the flow of this conversation. So with that, we are flowing to the end of the episode, and
We are.
yeah, I know, right? We're definitely going to have you back. So this is just one of many. We've had people appear on our show. Oh my God, 5, 6, 7, lots of times. So we're coming back. We're coming back with you, Cindy. But what I'd like to do is have you just drop some love, inspiration to our listening audience about, just flowing in alignment. What if there's someone and maybe they're in that transition space, their house hopping, couch surfing, especially in the entertainment field, because people would truly be surprised at the people you see on the screen and driving the cars in the movies, how they're in real life reality is. So what inspiration would you throw out there to our listeners?
Yeah. In terms of flowing in alignment, it's trusting the voice that's coming up. But part of that is learning to feel safe in your body, because that's a big piece that I feel like a lot of people are missing, is feeling safe in your own body. And a lot of us have good reason for not feeling safe in our own body. So I'm going to pull from my degree in kinesiology for a moment. We've got the nurse on hand here, so she can help me with this. But we all have these beautiful, rich nerves in our pelvic floor. So we've got our pelvic splenic nerves, we've got our celiac nerves, which are a little bit higher, closer to the belly button. All these places, when we learn to breathe into the pelvic floor and we learn to breathe into those celiac nerves, which is just below the belly button, the solar plexus, just above the belly button. When we breathe in and learn how to really breathe into the diaphragm, you're basically massaging the celiac nerves, which is your solar plexus. And that releases oxytocin, which makes you feel good, which gets you into, but it also, the celiac nerves is your emotional intelligence. It's the emotional brain. It's the second brain. So when we're breathing into those nerves, it actually, oh yes, I know Charles knows all about this because of Tai Chi and Qigong. But when we really learn how to center, especially that breath, then it actually gives us the intuition. It raises our intuition, it raises our emotional intelligence, our ability to read people, or oxytocin. And when you get very skilled at breathing into the pelvic floor, what it does is that it lowers the center of gravity, which makes you more stable in your body. It's harder to feel safe and trust yourself when you're not stable in your body. So that is my science lesson of the day. I love pulling out my degree. I have so much fun teaching the science part of everything. It's so fun.
Well
Yes,
spoken.
very well spoken. So your bottom line would be just to feel safe in your body, and that will help with flow of alignment. That'll help keep you
That's
in the
true.
flow.
It'll help you to listen to the deeper yearnings, the deeper
Yes.
voices.
Yes,
Yes.
some deep breathing will help you get there.
Yes.
Bring it down low.
Yes. I
Yes,
love that. And I love that you took the time to be with us, because you're doing a lot of things here at the end of the year. I would be totally amiss if I let this show end without just giving you the biggest shout out for hosting the Christmas Misfit
Yes,
of
yes.
2024 in Paris, France. And yeah, it was amazing. Not even knowing us, but just talking to us, just based on a connection from a mutual friend, Shout out Brian Bashad. This is the
We love Brian
second
Bashar.
contact. This is 2 out of 3, Brian. So we just have Declan to connect with. But yes, Brian is an amazing light, as evidenced by all the rays of light that he surrounds him and the light connections that he make, such as ours, right? And so without even like I'm not gonna say knowing us, because we were texting back and forth, and you felt the vibe, you knew what it was. And so you were like, hey, how about I host Christmas? I'm not a big hoster, but how
No,
about
I'm not.
I host Christmas, at my place, and I have you and Charles and get a couple of other people. I think it was 6 of us in total, and it was so amazing. And just to like go with flow, I had made up my mind that your girl was not cooking. I was gonna pick up something, and I was gonna bring and drop off, right? Because I'm not cooking. And that's an important lesson in flow, because when you are truly in the flow of alignment, you're gonna do what you do. So even though I'm like, I'm not cooking, next thing I know, my girl Cindy got me in there making salmon. So, it's just like I thought I was going to eat salmon. I'm in there cooking. And it was so fun because it was not, I was doing it without even knowing I was like, that's how smooth the flow was.
Yes.
I'm instructing, and next thing you know, I'm doing it. Next thing you know, I'm in charge of salmon, right? So it's just like that was smooth. That was smooth move. And
It was not intentional, because I had asked you. I said I normally poach. I normally do it this way, but I don't know how to do this. And I had asked you, and you just took it over. And I'm like, thank God she did, because it was
right,
delicious.
it was definitely, it was like an exchange. It was just like this flow. That's how alignment flow though.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
it actually freed me up to work on the salad and do the dressing.
absolutely.
So
And
I had
then,
other stuff to do, so it was
yeah,
perfect.
and everybody was in that one butt
It
kitchen
was amazing.
making it happen. We had Julian that was over there doing that corn pudding, and
That was
doing
ridiculous. So
bread,
good.
and
Yeah.
it was amazing.
And
We had our girl Saber up there doing the mocktails. We had Cindy on salad. We had Diane on salmon. We had Charles and Jerry on conversation in the corner,
yes.
and we made it do what it do.
Yes, and we had spoke earlier, and I say, Cindy, just relax. It will organically
I
come.
remember you saying that.
Yes, and look at what happened.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like the best Christmas I've probably ever had. It's
Oh.
up there with my
It was,
best Christmases.
oh yeah, and because usually we kind of chill. We don't even do Christmas
Yeah.
gatherings, and it was so amazing because out of all 6 of us, we had that same thing. It's like this the first time, and God knows when, we did this Christmas celebration together. All the personalities fit.
Yes.
Everything just flowed. And the food, I mean, it all, even the food flowed. Like our plates were just a very beautiful creation of deliciousness. So yeah, with that, I think we're going to Charles's favorite question, Charles.
Yes, I don't want to just leave it out. Cindy, what are the best ways for our listening audience to get in touch with you?
All
What
right.
suggest?
So go to cindyashton.com. And once you're on the cindyashton.com, there's links to be able to follow me on social media and see all the crazy things I do on Instagram.
Awesome. That is
Fantastic.
awesome. And you will send me a copy of those links so that I can put in the narrative. You shoot me an email with that, and I'll put it right there in our narrative.
Yes.
I just want to thank you, Cindy, for the flow of your time today. I mean, this conversation was definitely aligned, and time is non-refundable. So that is the greatest gift that you can give is your time, So we thank you for
We
giving
thank
your
you very
time.
much.
We thank you for sharing your flow with our listeners. I am sure that this is exactly what someone and someone else and someone else and someone else and someone else need to hear right at this moment that it's released. Yeah, just go check Cindy out. She is definitely a beautiful vibe with a huge heart for advocacy, for just the love and fun of life. It's just a zest of life, for leaping ahead, just leaping when she's not even ready. She will leap. That's something that we got, that we picked up from a previous guest, Saber, who was one of the Christmas misfits. She said, just being able to leap even when you're not ready. And so that is being in the flow, because sometimes we're not ready for the flow, but if you're surrendered, you will do it. So we thank you, Cindy, for all of that. And we just ask our listeners to continue to support, share the love. We thank you for staying tuned. And as Charles and I always say when we sign off, it is one love.
No, never a second will I waste, never an opportunity to taste the sweetness of this life.
Thank you for tuning in to the Love Drops podcast. Be sure to follow this podcast and share the love with everyone you know. Until next time, this is Charles and Diane signing off. One love.
Love it conquers all, whether big or small. Love never fails. Oh, love it conquers all. Love never